Alright, so up everybody, welcome back to the Path of Rage and our weekly Star Citizen news coverage. We have Inside Star Citizen to go over today, where they went into a little more in-depth with the Overdrive initiative mission chain that they're currently trying out in preparation for when Star Citizen becomes a fully fledged online MMO. We have a Squadron 42 monthly report to go over. There's quite a bit of information on that, and I'm going to go a little bit into the current 323 patch now that it's available to Wave 1 testers as well. I am Rage at Games, and let's get into it. Starting off with Inside Star Citizen, the devs went into a little bit more detail with the Overdrive initiative, which is the 5-mission chain of missions that players can currently go into in the live environment and in the 323 test build currently, that has 5 different stages so far. Players will be able to play this up until May, and currently right now this is a way for them to test out large-scale missions in order to get players together in the game in a similar manner to other MMOs and live service games. There's a storyline that plays out over the course of these 5 missions, and all of them are getting more difficult with each stage of the event. Phase 1 is a data heist where the civilian defense force is being attacked by the Xenothreat gang, and the player has to infiltrate the UGF where this attack is happening to get the data and protect the server while extracting it, all while fighting off waves of enemies. These waves get shorter time frames in between to prepare for as they go along, giving players less time to prepare, making it more difficult. This can be still done with possibly 1, usually 2 to 4 players easily enough. Phase 2 is a bounty recovery mission, which will take us into vehicle combat, where the player has to take out a target that's carrying an encryption key, or a decryption key, one of the two, and once the players have it, they will have to bring it back to a drop-off point. This mission will require disabling the ship and boarding it to actually take out the target and get the key. Phase 3 features a full-scale incursion into the system by Xenothreat that will require multiple players in order to complete, as it's more of a fleet battle this time around. This mission is available to all players when it happens, regardless of where they are in the mission chain, although players who have not done the first 2 parts will still have to go back to do so in order to advance properly in the quest line. This mission step needs the coordination between all the various players in order to succeed at it, because again, it is a fleet battle. Phase 4 then becomes a split style mission, where the first half of the mission requires the players to re-enable 3 comm arrays, followed by a section at the Korea security system. In the first section, players will have to reactivate these comm arrays, all while fighting off Xenothreat, and there will be quite a lot of ships to battle against while this is happening. So players will have to split between defending the array in their ships, fighting off these mass enemies, while also some will have to get out and infiltrate the booby-trapped comm array in order to turn it back on. Once this stage is done, players will then head to Korea to fight off a full-scale assault on the system or the station, where Xenothreat is trying to wipe out the entire criminal database in preparation for something even larger down the road. Phase 5 is the current one that's been finally added up, and it is a delivery mission, which brings the action down a little bit in order to not wear out the players' enthusiasm level. They'll be bringing supplies to a jump point in Stanton to prepare for the coming battle in upcoming Phase 6. It's a slightly more chill and relaxed stage of the mission chain, like I said, allowing the player to catch their breath a bit. There still will be combat with Xenothreat to try and stop the players from delivering the supplies, but it is a little bit more toned back from the previous stages. And then finally, Phase 6, which is not yet enabled that I'm aware, but it will be, is the Xenothreat mission that CIG has run before now, 2 or 3 times, but with some changes to the way it works. For instance, they've changed the sizes of the boxes that need moving off of the derelict ships while you're being defended against the Xenothreat fighters. Those boxes have been changed now, requiring the use of dedicated tractor beams, including bigger boxes. So I think you might actually require the tractor tool, the two-hander, not just the small handheld one. A new commodity has been added in as well, and the actual fleet showdown at the end of the event, where the Idris shows up to battle the Javelin and all the players defending it, has been updated based on feedback from the Capture the Idris event that CIG ran earlier in this year. They didn't give full details here on Inside Star Citizen, but they did directly encourage us to try to board the Idris, so I'm looking forward to that. This Overdrive initiative is CIG's first real foray into developing mission chains and event chains going forward to make the game actually feel like a game, giving players more and more to do inside the game while incorporating story and missions together in a natural feeling way in order to give some form of feel of progress to the persistent universe while players are there. Moving on to the monthly report for March for Squadron 42. The AI features team continued to fix bugs and make improvements to human combat and other AI behaviors, and they used the example of a new bug that threatened to become the standing on chairs issue, which has been a long time in this game. Fortunately, it seems like they may have been able to eliminate that before it happened, so there we have it. The AI tech team was focused on finalizing and polishing features for Alpha 323 alongside optimizations for the existing systems, and that has been noticeable in the very quickly releasing patches that they're coming up with. They use the example of planetary navigation was completed. Now they're able to generate nav meshes over the entire planets, which was a problem with how AI was able to traverse terrain. It kept things very, very limited for them. They used the same concepts as the physics and planetary tech teams used for representing the terrain patches, and navigation tiles were represented as cubed and parallel piped navigation volumes. Don't know what that means. I'm not a programmer. This new method used a volume with a skewed square base. It brings new challenges, like they said, but it allows the navigation mesh to be generated anywhere and on all types of planets and moons. So, yay to progress. For the Boids, which are like the birds you see flying around and the fish, they're not really interactable, with just a little life to the planet. They implemented new rules and finalized synchronization between the servers and clients and polished these little features. The AI tech team iterated on new ship behaviors with design to improve the AI combat experience, and that has been noticeable also in the PU, especially when the server is running well. The substantial improvements were made to the aiming control system for the ships and turrets, and to perception thanks to support for missile detection. Other improvements were made in the navigation system to reduce the computation time by better utilizing navigation anchors. And the subsumption loading logic improvements were submitted that more clearly show problems in the data so that they can fix it quicker. On the tool side, they continued to improve and iterate on Apollo, including implementing a new version of the sticky header tree that allows a better representation of files and folders. Again, that is much more of a thing directly for the programmers who might more understand it. On the animation team side, they've been working on the Space Cow, a medium-sized bird, a predator wolf-like creature, so I imagine something similar to the Copion, and several new vehicle entrance animations. The AI characters team completed a range of branded racing flight suits and continued working on outfits for the Headhunters gang while exploring specialist armors and worked on handoff sheets. For ship art, The team saw progress on the RSI Zeus, which is now gray box complete, and all functionality has been validated, with the ship now moving into the beauty and polish stage. Habitation and central hallways have made significant progress and are nearing completion, and the cargo hold continues to progress, with the main lamp's main piston structure being improved on, as well as the interior and exterior of the ramp. The landing gear is nearly complete, and the overall exterior continues to progress as well. The white box is complete now on the Anvil Legionnaire, with the team currently waiting on gameplay validation and artists to be free to fill up their required roles in full development. The team's work on the resource network began, and 10 ships are nearing completion, some of which have received updated ship item lists. And following gameplay validation, the relays that engineers will be fixing and repairing and moving about will be their locations will be polished and decided upon. Update work on a legacy ship continued as well, with updates to the dash, cockpit, and some exterior housing. And I sincerely hope, I doubt, but I sincerely hope that it's the Constellation, especially the struts. I doubt it is, but I'm crossing my fingers, because that is my favorite ship overall so far, and I'd really like to see it get just a nice gold pass. The community team spent March supporting the Overdrive initiative and the Stella Fortuna event. The latter had a banner design contest, and there you can check out the the entries on the community hub for that. They also spent time preparing the new 2.0 launcher for live release, which is an improved launcher, I do agree, alongside with many other tasks in preparation for Alpha 3.2.3, 4.0, and beyond. In the latest roadmap roundup, they shared details about the 3.2.3 patch. They recognized outstanding players who dedicated their time and effort to the current patch's testing phases in the Alpha 3.2.2 Testing Universe Champion. They started March with a lot of energy thanks to Bar Citizens. Talking about events, the 7 System Ground Racing League was still ongoing, and the community team is really good actually at supporting a lot of the orgs and whatnot, and they keep doing a good job. They continue to detail the weekly schedules in This Week in Star Citizen, adding to the community monthly hub, and they are currently making preparations to keep us in the loop further for the upcoming CitizenCon later this year. On the core gameplay side, the gameplay features team successfully passed the go-no-go gates for procedural recoil, scopes, dynamic crosshairs, and reloading improvements, and further bug fixing is currently ongoing for these deliverables. And these are all extremely welcome changes. They're working well in the 3.2.3 patch so far. Progress was also made on ammo repooling with various network optimizations and bug fixes. The looting UI was updated to support the way ammo is repooled, and reload animations now play the correct time following the rummage animation. Work continued on pre-production of base building, with gameplay features working closely with art and design to refine requirements and define metrics. Now, I was not expecting to see that yet. I know they've mentioned it. They did a brief snippet of video back at CitizenCon, I believe it was. I did not expect to see anything mentioned on this, so it's cool that they're actively, yes, pre-production, but actively working on it. They added different color loot screens depending on whether the player is looting an enemy, friendly, or neutral body. They added a button to go from the inventory to the loot screen, and a pop-up window when an item swap can't be performed. They also allowed for separate loot screen styles between visor and the lens, and the conversion of on-screen chat to building blocks in the visor and lens was also completed. They converted more markers to the new system, including navigation, ships, player, party members, missions, and landing pads. For EVA, they unblocked the animation content to support weapons customization and two-handed carry to work with the new EVA. They provided support for backwards and sideways flying animation content, and the thruster packs now correlate correctly to the layer of equipment the players are wearing. So the effects shooting from the nozzles on your backpack will come from the correct places on the backpack, not your undersuit. Improvements were made to how shop items are highlighted when players look at them, the positioning of the AR cards, and vehicle designs based on feedback, and they completed the buy and rent interactions for physical shopping. Gameplay features made further improvements to prone locomotion, adding support that was provided to animation to unlock further animation assets. And for master modes, improvements to aiming and targeting for the gunnery system were completed. ESP saw further improvements, and smoother response was achieved based on players' feedback. Throughout March, development continued on the resource network, with electromagnetic emissions now based on power consumption, and infrared is now based on coolant and heat generation, with the team improving various debug tools, fixing bugs, and supporting the ongoing testing of an experimental Arena Commander mode. A temporary solution for ship hull penetration was added until Maelstrom is ready to support physical ship armor. And we don't know when exactly that's going to be. They've been kind of mum on how their progress on the armor for ships is coming. Right here they say this is subject to change, based on development and testing progress. Only ballistic weapons right now can currently penetrate the hull and damage internal components. For life support, the team optimized the dynamic room atmosphere system and made it network compatible. Various improvements and refactors were made to the room system, and debug tools were greatly improved to allow the team to test the system before the UI is complete. The transit system, the primary focus in March was supporting cargo elevators and instance hangars, which still have not shown up in the 3.2.3 patch. Alongside with general refactoring, this focus required adding hangar destination exporting, communications between transit and instance managers for the hangars, the ability to dynamically add destinations to the carriages, requests for creation of hangars, and supporting for capturing peripherals in dynamically add a hangar. So I'm imagining that was quite a lot of headache-inducing coding that had to go on for that. Once they completed that, they moved on to planning and architecting a refactor for the whole transit system to prepare it for the future. Now, I don't know if they mean for just the elevator transit system or if they mean the actual player transits as well, like the trams. We'll have to see. The team updated the radar zone queries for radar and scanning to use a new zone query each time to improve performance. And work began on signature categories, which allow the team to apply different signature detections based on emitters, which can be used to independently detect components on a ship, for example, thrusters compared to offline shield generators. Support was also provided for the item port editor tool, including defining them directly in the item port parameters within the container in data core. Again, more of a programming thing than a player-facing thing. And the team supported the restoration of several core analytics and the reporting of key animation to better understand players' activity within the game. Focusing on Arena Commander, they were closing out deliverables for 3.2.3, notably custom lobbies and initial selection of custom settings. They continued to improve the multi-crew experience so that now, having either multi-crew enabled or disabled, players can choose to enable the feature for friends or squad members only, not just random and whoever shows up. Engineering refactored the team balance system, removing layers of complexity that they had experimented with. Now it's a simple balancing logic that prioritizes keeping squads together, with the exception of being large imbalances, and a delay has been added before balancing to allow more players to connect. The team also improved loadout definitions, allowing them to create and edit slots for different ammo types, including consumables and utility ammo. They created a variant of salvage and repair multi-tools filled with canisters for use with engineering experimental modes. This work allowed the players to use their persistent universe characters in Arena Commander. So now that if you have a customized character, you will utilize that in Arena Commander rather than the default actor. It didn't matter before so much But now that they're bringing in the multi-crew gameplay, focusing on the engineer, people are going to see each other in ships more often. So yeah, this is cool. For the design, the team focused on supporting the engineering experimental modes with new maps and modes, and they continued to work on the user experience and UI, looking to establish a style for Arena Commander. And finally, they supported a new system for Gun Rush, which allows them to have multiple lists that can be toggled on and off throughout the patch cycle. This allows them to test more variety and more weapons without waiting for a new patch, which is good. March also saw an update to the reputation-based hostility, with several issues being fixed with the new reputation system. Changes were also made to the trespass behavior. Now, factions defend a trespass zone if it's owned by them, and factions with the appropriate settings will also be able to defend allied trespass zones. And this is something I've noticed in the underground bunkers. When you used to clear out a bunker from the attacking gang members, the minute that last gang member was dead, you were automatically considered trespassing and you were given, I think, what, 15 minutes to leave. That doesn't happen anymore. I like this change. You've just helped them out. There's no reason for them to boot you, so you have time to loot and do what you want. They continue to redesign the contract manager and the Mobi-Glass, including adding a button to read, unread mission info, and a toggle to switch between the legal and the illegal missions, which I really like. They also completed payment validation for beacons and fixed several bugs, including making the contract timer reduce in consistent increments, again, which I like, because there have been times where missions have just canceled on you very, very quickly for reasons just aren't explained. They made the journal compatible with the new Mobi-Glass, updated the home screen, added visuals for recent notifications, active missions, and your current jurisdiction and crime level in that area. Support was added for the legacy comlink and vehicle management. Flash apps and visual updates were made to the wallet and asset apps. I am looking forward to the comlink and vehicle management system being changed over. They are a bit clunky still. For the missions, the gameplay features team provided a new data structure to mission design so they can start setting up hauling missions, which are very, very basic cargo missions right now. They aren't really hauling missions. This overall framework for the offline version of mission service progressed as well, and a debug UI was extended to server meshing. Improved debug tools were added to cargo hauling missions, such as the ability to debug complete parts of the hauling order to simulate collecting or delivering using the freight elevators. March also saw progress on the hangars, including the instance interior manager that handles the logic and reserve gateways transitioning between the outside world and the hangar. Now players calling an elevator or retrieving a ship in supported locations will receive an instant hangar that the transit, air traffic control, and law systems all respond to. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that works, actually. Improvements were made to the freight elevator kiosk, including the layout, branding, tooltips, delivery screen, and platform handling. And they're currently integrating the kiosk with personal inventory framework. The item bank is functional and correctly uses the storage locker, and is an updated delivery selection logic. And improvements were made to the warehouse system to support missions as well. The community kiosk saw updates that were made to the design of it, alongside with the packing and auto-loading displays, and support was given to the lighting and VFX content teams towards ship loading platforms as well. The economy team worked towards rebalancing the various commodities throughout the system so that they'll have a scalable algorithm that will work with things like crafting going forward in the future. The economy is something that is one of those things that's waiting for more systems to be completed and brought into the game before they worry about pricing or whatnot, because too much is subject to change otherwise. Mission rewards are also being rebalanced according to difficulty and time that it requires. They're working to better understand how much time and difficulty is put into a mission for players for specific activities, and pricing is currently underway for harvestables and hangar flare as well. The economy is currently involved in the design of the reputation and org progression, and they're starting to balance the time and cost of auto-loading the freight elevators and providing support for cargo missions. Those freight elevators are going to be such a substantial change to this game. It's the one thing in the 3.2.3 patch that I've been testing out as Evocati and now in Wave 1 as well, that we haven't gotten our hands on yet, that I'm really, really interested in. I want to see how drastically this is going to affect Star Citizen going forward. On the graphics, virtual effects, and programming and planet tech side, most of the focus was fixed on delivering the various deliverables and fixing them for 3.2.3. Performance scaling options have been added to the water simulation so it can scale to all hardware, while various improvements were made to the water bounding shadery, visor wetness to give a seamless effect as the player enters water. Distance field collisions were also completed for more accurate collisions when vehicles hit each other, and the Vulcan team worked through several performance issues as they brought performance closer to Direct 3D, saying that this precedes the enabling of multi-threading for the next release to hopefully beat the D3D levels on the CPU. Some performance issues remain, so depending on the location and context, it may change the performance level depending on each player. We'll see how this goes. It hasn't been enabled in 3.2.3 yet, so soon to come apparently. They're currently working on reworking the shaders to reduce the total number that need compiling when the game starts, and global illumination continued with a focus on performance as well. The Planet Tech team started work on Planet Tech 5 with the initial focus on the groundwork required to set up spatial partitioning. They need to decide how this will work with server meshing and server crash recovery, and the devs also introduced the concept of default planets in the internal editor so that it's trivial for anyone to create a planet and use it for testing, which is cool. They want to put 100 systems in here, they need something like that. On the VFX side, we saw improvements to the water, and they continued networking support with the fire simulation, also making changes to augmented reality render layer to enable support for holographic weapons like muzzle flashes, projectiles, and whatnot. The in-game branding and locations team worked together with on getting ready for Invictus launch week, and they're almost finished with that. And they started work on branding cargo containers and various signs for the locations that is almost finished as well. Item banks, now called gear storage, were finished, including a heavily worn version that you can see here for Grimhex, and they were placed around the verse for convenient access. These do not currently work properly in the 3.2.3 patch. You can use them, but they're blindingly white and the screen doesn't actually let you interact with it. Explosive containers were reworked and replaced in static meshes so they'll not explode if shot. Fire extinguishers have been placed throughout the verse, and they've been taken to a final look, and cargo hover trolleys are being finalized in preparation for the hangar update. And alongside the tasks for the hangars, freight elevators, and distribution centers, the lighting team also worked on Invictus launch week, supporting the upcoming character customizer, and addressed community feedback to some long-standing issues. Last month saw the locations team polishing content for Alpha 4.0, closing out upcoming distribution centers, adding content and quality to give the best possible player to experience on launch, and kicking off production for new mandates officially beginning in Q2, finalizing the art for instant hangars and preparing them for implementation across the verse. The mission features team was restructured, becoming a mission design team. It still will build scalable modular content for the persistent universe, is more of a name change. Following the feedback on the Operation Overdrive, I always say it backwards, on the Overdrive Initiative event, they're revisiting the standard data heist missions. They don't like the fact that they're locked to a single player, which causes a bottleneck. That even if you can share the mission, you are the one who has to do the card. I believe that's how it works. They're trialing a change that will allow a singular version of the mission to be accepted by 4 players who will play together. This will free up missions and locations so that more of these events can go on at once. And people who usually play solo will be part of a team, regardless, because you'll end up playing together. Work progressed on the cargo hauling missions, with players being tasked to hauling tracked goods from one location to another. And consistent payout of 20% of the cargo's value will mean that the hauler's income will be more stable than that of a commodity trader who buys low and sells high. Once a cargo hauler gets comfortable with the profession, then they might try their luck at commodities. And a player is legally allowed to transport goods, but they do not own them. As a result, lawful stores across Stanton will not buy these commodities. To sell the shipment rather than delivering it, the player must navigate to a fence, a no-questions-asked shop often located in an unmonitored area of Stanton. Due to its tracked nature, this cargo features a significantly lower price than ordinary sandbox communities. Now that we have wildlife coming into the PU, the mission design team has been working on related missions. There's 3 types now. Kill X amount, where you're controlling the population. You have to locate the animals yourself. There's clear a location, which you have to, I think in the 323 patch right now, it asks you to kill 15 of them if you have to, once you find them. There's also kill and collect, which they have resources. So with the Copions, you take the horns off their nose. Faux pas if you want, but hey, that's what it is. They also further tested the blockade runner mission, and a small change was made to make sure the event stays fun. And global event Xeno threat events are continuing to be worked on. And work on Xeno threat global events continue as well. Last month, the narrative team continued to work closely with design for a variety of content, like existing missions, to the new player experience, to new missions being developed for upcoming gameplay. They continued to iterate on narrative initiatives designed to bring more character and stories to the verse. This ended up with a series of proposals that are being reviewed by design currently, and they continued to outline ways to improve AI behaviors to sell the lore a bit better. They also met with some of the gameplay teams to talk over the lorification, as they say here, of upcoming systems, so I imagine having them all tie into the background. Another group of posts has gone up on the website, including Whitley's Guide for the 890 Jump, more Galactopedia articles, and a new edition of Lore Maker's Guide. For online technology, the online services team kept refactoring the social services backend, porting the services to gRPC, and making updates for server meshing. They are currently working to reduce the anti-cheat false positives that are coming from Easy Anti-Cheat, and they are finishing off a long-term persistence work for the character customizer, which will allow players to save their characters between patches, which would be kind of nice, actually. I may not be a huge fan or person who's excited by character customizers, but not having to remake your character every time a patch comes out, yeah, okay, I'm all about that. The R&D department continued on researching the temporal render mode. Tracking moving objects through clouds was improved. A novel method was developed because disocclusion algorithms only work for opaque scenes, but the team wanted objects to fly through transparent clouds, have them be partially occluded by them, or fog, for example. And the generation and blending of soft depth for clouds and atmosphere was improved. And the depth information is crucial to properly handling history rejection when moving through clouds. They also supported the Gen 12 Vulkan endeavor by analyzing the current pipeline used to render the game and suggested several ways to reduce it. These are being worked on by the render team and will hopefully lead to better performance and pre-cache the first time players start the game. Tech design supported various areas of development for 323 and beyond, including item banks, making a new rundown of the variant entity, setting up state machines, and iterating on main screen and player interaction points and flow. Hangars were supported alongside ship flight, new AI behaviors to make them more responsive, and master modes receiving some polish. Support was given to the Q&A for visual scripting, and nodes were added for getting and setting player stats. And for the UI itself, the tech design team worked on test level setup and FPS crosshairs and hit markers. updating and polishing animations and fixing bugs, with general bug fixing being done to improve various tools and workflows. On the UI front, the Montreal-based UI team was working closely with the core gameplay and UI teams on the new cargo updates, encompassing development of the new freight elevator kiosk, commodity kiosk, and item bank. They began preparing mandates coming later this year, including the resource network and jump points. And the UK focus team was focused on adding the new player-facing UI to the game, with the new version of the mobiGlass made fully functional in time to get the player feedback going on in 3.2.3 right now, with visual polish still ongoing. And this I can attest to. It was very difficult at times to read the text in the mobiGlass because of the drop shadows. That has been very much improved. Could be better still, but it is improving. The new visor and lens got visual improvements, while functionality elements were ported over by the programming team, and the UI continued to polish the new shopping UI and character customizer in preparation for release. And finally, on the VFX front, the team finished their work on the distribution centers and freight elevators, completing several tasks for several various vehicles as well. Progress is continuing on the jump point effects, direly needed, including a concept based on a new gameplay considerations that became apparent during testing. They're also taking another look at water effects to coincide with the graphics team's plans to release some of the water improvements that were shown at SitCon. Moving on now to the 3.2.3 current build and my thoughts on this patch. And overall, it continues on the same path as my last couple of videos talking about this. They have been releasing almost daily, if not every other day, patches. The focus is still on stability, the master modes, the character customizer, the mobiGlass rework, and the star map, all of which are going well. The new EVA system, the new loot screens, the combat refactor for first person, the reloading and the ammo repolling, the physical shopping, and the new arena commander. What they don't have going on in there yet, like I said, is the freight elevators, the instance hangars. There are still problems with the distribution centers where mission chains are breaking to them. Elevators open up into nothingness. There's a lot of bugs in it as well. Today, before I was doing this voiceover in this video, I was trying to get some footage in the latest 3.2.3 patch because it's not under NDA now and Wave 1 is open. And whatever was going on with the servers, even though my CPU and my GPU were both running well under 50%, we were getting FPS drops into the single digits that would just last for almost a full minute, as the server was obviously struggling to send any information, and then it would pick back up again very briefly and then go back down. The server that I was on was very, very laggy, very desynced. Currently, a lot of the trams don't line up with their tracks. The one at New Babbage goes actually under the planet and over the city at the same time somehow. Master modes, I still think is an overall improvement. I like the way it works. The one thing I have brought up before I still don't like, and has become a source of contention on the forums and on Reddit and whatnot, is the spool up time for it. Because the moment that you go to change from SCM combat mode to the nav mode, you have to spool up your quantum drive, but your shields drop immediately. And you are left going at your slow speed, your SCM speed, trying to get out of combat, being shot the whole time, while your quantum drive slowly spools up. There are many ships that will never escape combat this way. It's obvious that this part has been tuned only towards the combat ships. Trying it in a constellation, it takes forever. It's like, again, like I said, people are very much giving their feedback that this takes too bloody long. You should be speeding up much quicker than you are. You shouldn't be waiting to suddenly speed up almost 15, 20 seconds later while you're taking shots and missile shots and everything. It doesn't work quite right. It does need more tuning. When you guys play it, if you're in Wave 1, or as further ones open up, I would highly suggest you go to the issue council and tell them if you think that this is an appropriate weight or not. I think it's going to be one of the bigger issues with this patch, because everything else is going pretty much according to plan. The Copion missions work or don't work, the hunting the wildlife, I mean, depending on the server, but they can be very deadly. I nearly got killed by a pack of them. Overall, this patch is going well. It's still a very buggy mess. It's still most definitely an early patch, but it is improving. I haven't had a server crash in the last couple of patches, and that's to be noted, because they are doing the server meshing in the background. They are working on that. They keep increasing player counts, and as the more players end up on the servers in one area, you do notice it. Hence the single-digit frame rates is what I'm going to guess. But overall, this is going very, very well. The interior map updates, plotting routes on the mini map and whatnot has become easier, a little bit less bug free. Notifications for law zones and whatnot are more visible, so you have a better idea if you're in a green zone, or if you have a crime stat, or if you're impeded from quantum, that kind of thing. There has been improvements, despite what I said about the frame rate, to the server performance. Again, it does depend, but I am noticing when it is running at higher server frame rates, it tends to stay there a little bit more consistently. The UI itself performs better, as I mentioned earlier. The readability is better. The star map is much improved. There was a point where you could not read any of the labels on the planets, even in dim conditions. That has been improved. Still has a way to go. They have fixed a ton of bugs, and every time they put out a new patch, they'll show at the bottom, fixed 12 client crashes and 6 server crashes and a back-end server. It's not like 1 or 2 fixes. They're knocking them out. So I encourage anybody who can get into Wave 1, get in there. If you are, sound off in the comments and let me know what you think. For those of you who are not in Wave 1, it's coming. You are going to love the changes, especially as they iron out the kinks and this gets closer and closer to a viable live build. It is going to change the game drastically in so many ways. Just overall playability, readability, the missions themselves. Will it change the overall bugginess? Well, we'll see on that one. In the meantime, that is it for this episode of our Star Citizen Weekend Review, rumor roundup, whatever we want to call it. Sound off in the comments if you have an idea for that one as well. If you thought I did a good job with this video, give me a thumbs up. If not, give me a thumbs down. Again, always sound off in the comments. If you're new, hit that subscribe button to help me beat the algorithm. And until next time, I've been RayJ Games, and I'll see you in the verse.